Are you tracking with me? Oh man, that's bad. Let's try a dad joke instead. How does a railroad evaluate the effectiveness of their crashes and safety? They look at their track record. Yeah, that was lame too. Thank you guys very much for spending a few minutes of your day checking out this video with me. Today we are reviewing the TRACT Toric UHD scope. It is a 4.5 to 30 magnification range, 34mm tube, 56mm objective lens. Let's get right to it. My name is Dave Tim from Guns and Tactics. If you like what you're seeing, please like, share, and subscribe. You can learn more about us online, social media outlets, all that stuff's in the description below. The scope, have to say, very impressive scope. We're going to talk about what I like about it, what at first I didn't like about it, but then kind of came around to, as well as my shooting experience and a little bit of specs. Those of you guys that know me know that I'm not a spec reader. I hate the reviews where they just read you the specs. I could find that online. We're going to talk about a few specs that I think are important. Now, first things first, my relationship with TRACT, I don't have one. I'm not making any money. They're not paying me to make this video. This is my review based on my own experience. They did send this as a demo, which is pretty common in the industry. They will send out a writer's sample is what it's called. You get to keep it for generally about 6 months, and then you have to send it back or send it to another reader, and that is the arrangement currently with this. No money, no payment, nothing like that. This is just my true review. But I have to say, the bottom line up front is I'm really impressed. And I do love this magnification range of a scope, this 4.5 to 30. There are a couple of other makers that have a similar model on the market. And we're just going to talk about those right away and how this compares to the samples that I have in that similar range. So first things first, generally speaking, what I like about this 4.5 to 30 kind of chassis, if you will, or kind of frame, is it's compact and it offers a very generous magnification range, a little over 6x magnification range if you do the math. Now some companies like Leica have a 5 to 30, Trijicon has a 4.5 to 30, the Delta Striker is 4.5 to 30, the Veldata Recon Gen 2 is similar, except for they use a bigger tube, and theirs is, I want to say, like a 4.8 to 30. Now I've used the Veldata, I've used the Trijicon, now I have the TRACT, and I have to say, out of the three, I do like the TRACT overall the most. If I had to pick one of those three, I would pick the TRACT, and we're going to talk about why here in just a little bit. First things first, the price. MSRP and street price on this scope are the exact same. And we'll talk about why here also in just a moment, but you can buy this scope for $1,694. So let's just call it $1,700 bucks. The Trijicon has a MAP or minimum advertised price and an MSRP of higher than that. I know sometimes you can find things on sale. The Veldata IOR, or not IOR, but the Veldata Recon Gen 2 is significantly higher than that. The Leica is higher than that, and I don't have much current information on the Delta Striker because I don't have a ton of information on their US footprint. But I have to say, like, the price on this is absolutely amazing for what you're getting. The reason why is TRACT, although they may not be a household name, they are no stranger to the optics industry. However, what they are doing is a little different than your traditional optics company. Most traditional optics companies have the product made for them. Very few are making it in-house, but they have it made. Generally, their high-end stuff is made at Light Optical Works, or LOW, or LOW, in Japan. And they make some of the finest scopes in the world for a lot of big names. You can search, but chances are, if you have a favorite high-end scope that you really like and it's made in Japan, it's probably coming from Light Optical Works. They make really, really good stuff. As is the case with the TRACT, it is made at Light Optical Works. Most companies will have a scope made, they will bring it in. They will then sell it to distributors. Those distributors will then sell it to dealers. The dealers will then sell it to the consumer. So you have everybody kind of needing to get a cut of that profit. And you'd be surprised of the profit margin on some of these high-end scopes. Where TRACT is trying to be more competitive, and quite frankly they are, is that they are strictly direct to consumer. Meaning that if you want to buy a TRACT optic, you have to buy it direct from them. Now the downside to that is you can't go to your favorite sporting goods store and check it out and go hands-on. So there's a little bit of a give and take with that type of business philosophy. Real quick about the company. One of the things that I like to do when I review products is get to know the players behind the company. The reason why the guys at TRACT are really doing a good job making good quality products is because they have a background in the optics industry. They both came from Nikon. Nikon is no doubt an optical powerhouse in all sorts of different industries, and John really do know that market and that industry. What I like about them is they are super good dudes. Their customer service has been awesome. Every time I've called and said, hey, I have a nerd question, or hey, I want to talk about this, or hey, what about this? They've answered the phone, they've emailed me back. And as a consumer, I think it's really cool when you get people to answer the phone or get back to you in a timely manner, especially when it's the owners and founders of the company. I think that's even better. One thing that they do offer is the TRACT Assurance Lifetime Warranty. It covers defects. It is fully transferable. There's no need for registration, no need for receipts, paperwork, anything like that. So no matter what, if it is a TRACT optic or a product, they are going to warranty it for life, which is a nice touch considering you're making an investment. Believe it or not every high-end optic company warranties their stuff for life. Talking with them about the design of the scope, because again, this is a scope that is similar to some of the other products on the market from other companies, I asked them what they kind of did differently versus just go to Light Optical Works and say, hey, we want a 4.5 to 30 as well, throw our name on it. Because believe it or not, with other scopes, that's what the companies do. They'll go to the various optic manufacturers and say, hey, we want one of those, put our logo on it, ship it, done. Now what they did was they looked at this and they said, hey, we like kind of this chassis, but we want to do some of our own influence to it. We want to take some of our own knowledge, our own ideas, and our own engineering, and we want to build it into what is this scope here. They did a lot with the turret system to make an improved turret system with the locking turrets, good quality tracking. It is a precision instrument. They wanted to stress that. It's a precision instrument that does have high levels of quality control and is reliable. They were very, very strict to get everything that they wanted internally with the mechanics of the scope. On top of that, they also wanted to use shot glass. So again, it had that good image quality and it performed optically to a level that they wanted as well. Now, I didn't do a ton of like recoil tests. I don't have a 50 BMG to put it on, but judging by Light Optical Works track record, the tests that tracked themselves, the track record, sorry, another pun, did not even mean to do that. But judging by TRACT's record, I have no reason to think that it would not hold up, but I'm shooting it on a 6.5 Creedmoor, which is shown here. And then I also put this on my Voodoo 22 precision rimfire setup, which by the way, if you're looking for more information about an amazing precision rimfire video, check out the card up there. And the reason why I put it on my 22 is because I wanted to have another match experience with it. And I also know that in 22, we're generally looking at really small targets. We're looking at tiny targets up close where you need that close parallax and good magnification and resolution. There's things in the shadows. You're going to be dialing a lot, so I wanted to kind of give the turrets a little bit of an exercise and just get more experience behind the scope, and it performed really, really well. Glass was great. Now, at that particular match, I was very fortunate enough to have the opportunity to literally lay down and have several high-end scopes right next to each other. I had a ZCO, I had a TT, I had Vortex, I had Night Force. I had my own experience with some of the other brands as mentioned, and I have to say the TRACT Toric UHD was right up there. In fact, the tone on this was very, very pleasant compared to a couple of the other ones where I thought they were maybe a little bit more cool. Now, don't get me wrong, some of those were super, super nice, but they're also twice, if not more, money than this, and quite frankly, I would rather have two of these. This thing tracked really, man, another pun, I will stop. But as far as reliability with tracking of the turrets and things like that, super phenomenal. Did a great job. I had zero issues with that. Another test that I did when I first got it was I measured out 10 mils and 20 mils on a piece of paper, put that at 50 meters, and then I was able to secure this in a vise, and I just simply moved the turrets to make sure that the reticle was tracking accordingly, and it did. It was, it was as close and as accurate as I could replicate with the vise and the setup at down 50 meters. What comes in the box is the scope, a couple of caps, hex keys, the zero stop collar, battery, instruction manuals. Also included, which is a nice touch, is a screw-on matching sunshade. So everything that you're going to need to get going. Now, right off the bat, I will tell you, after using the scope for a few months, I wish that it would have come with the extended throw lever. They do sell that as an accessory. I would highly recommend just getting that if you're on the fence of what accessories to get, not get, if you've decided to buy this scope. The extended throw lever would be really great. I would have loved to have had that. And then I would also love to upgrade to their nicer flip covers. They are made by Tenebrex and super good quality. I have some of those on other scopes. I would just get those right out of the way. So just bite the bullet, buy those accessories right off the bat. You won't regret it. Let's get some of the specs out of the way so then I can talk more about shooting the scope. What I really like about the scope is its overall size. 14.4 inches long, 41.5 ounces, so a very reasonable length and weight. And what I like again about this size is if we look at more of a traditional, this is a 5-25, which is a pretty common scope in the industry. Now, if we compare the two, weight versus the various 5-25s obviously will vary a little bit, but you can generally see a more traditional 5-25 magnification type scope is generally going to be longer, sometimes a little heavier, and offer you 5-25. So a little bit lower magnification on this with 4.5. I would argue that's negligible, but then the high end of having 30 versus 25 is a nice perk as well. So I prefer it over the 5-25s, and I have a couple of 5-25s, super great scopes, but I really kind of like this better. Other specs that are important. Eye relief is going to be 3.6 to 3.8 inches depending on magnification, and then exit pupil does shrink as magnification increases. It's simply the objective size divided by magnification, which on this particular scope starts at 12.4 millimeters, so super huge. And then as you zoom in, it does shrink down to 1.86 millimeters, which does make it a little bit more critical to line up. On average, our eye pupil is going to be about that 2 to 3 millimeters, sometimes a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller. So having to align that with that just under 2 millimeter exit pupil at 30x does mean cheek placement and locking up to your chassis or stock and getting in alignment with the gun is a little bit more critical. If you really want to see the full specs, make sure you check out their webpage. They have great information on there. Again, I'm not a spec reader, so I apologize. One of the other features that I like about this scope, especially being a Minnesota shooter, meaning I shoot in the cold, we go in and out of cold, hot, whatever, is that it is filled with argon gas versus nitrogen. Now, I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you if one's that much better than the other, but I can tell you that the argon gas gave me no issues shooting outside in the cold, coming in, grabbing my rifle from a warm vehicle, going outside to the cold. I had no issues, and I was able to shoot in the winter-like conditions thanks to Mother Nature in Minnesota. No issues with that, performed really, really well. The construction or the body of the scope is a 34 millimeter main tube. Again, this just helps not only for internal adjustment, but also just durability, and it is really well built. And in precision rifle, we're not always the nicest. We're picking up our guns, these heavy, big guns, by the scope, moving in and out of position, having to adjust, grabbing on, and we're not always the nicest to our equipment. So having a scope that is rugged and reliable also is a nice touch. Let's talk turrets here. One of the things I noticed right away on this scope was the turrets. Not only are they really, really good sized, so they're easy to read the numbers, but they are also locking. This is great. I love that. I can't tell you how many times I've taken a scope out of a bag, out of a case, something like that, only to find out like, hey, why am I not hidden? Oh crap, a knob got turned or something like that. At a recent law enforcement sniper class I was at, one of the first things was check adjustments, check position. And I can't tell you again how many times me and my fellow students found that check adjustments, something got knocked around. So this scope, having these locking knobs is absolutely awesome. Now they're still very easy to move. You just lift the knob up and you make your adjustment. Good clicks. You can hear, you can feel. There's enough distance between each click that it's very distinct and you know that you're making exactly however many clicks you're doing. One of the things that I really appreciate with a scope is the ability to not have to worry about missing or going over or under. So having these kind of coarse clicks is, I think, very, very nice. On the mill version, which is what I have here, it is 0.1 MRAD per click, 10 per revolution. There is an MOA version available as well. What I like about the windage is it is a locking turret as well, and then it is easily marked with R and L so you know which way you're going. Super easy to use, easy to get behind the gun, no issues there. On the other side, we do have the illumination and parallax. Parallax goes down to 25 yards, and then on the opposite end, we do have affinity. Again, smooth dials, no issues with this. The illumination setting does go to 11. This one goes to 11. Speaking of illumination, even at setting 11, it is not like daytime way bright. You can see it in the day, but the reality is you're gonna probably be using the illumination in low light settings anyway. But it does use a 2032 battery, battery life is about 360 hours on medium setting. There is an off in between, which I did find super handy. So I like that. Again, noticeable, distinct clicks. No complaints, really. Everything is nice and smooth, whether it be the magnification, the parallax, the turrets. It feels like a high-end scope, and it should. It is a high-end scope. They are marketing it as a high-end scope, so I would expect it to perform really well in that regard. There is 30 mils of internal adjustment, which obviously you're not going to be able to use all 30 because you'll have to zero your scope. Zeroing is super easy to do. Get the scope adjusted, small hex key that comes in the box. You'll go ahead and remove the outer knob, reset, spin it to 0, and then you can also install the zero stop. Now the zero stop is a traditional Light Optical Works design, but it works really easy. You simply put the zero stop collar on the internal knob, tighten it so the tabs are in alignment, snug that down with the included hex key, and your zero stop is set. Zero stop is super solid. There's no doubt when you hit that wall of that zero stop, it just works really well. And then again, locking turrets so you don't have to worry about stuff getting bumped. As far as like the turrets and tracking and zero stop and everything like that, love it. Absolutely give it an A+. As far as glass quality, like I talked about earlier, I really did like the glass. It was very pleasant. Contrast I thought was good. Now I'm not an optical engineer by any means, but again, comparing this to some of the other high-end scopes that I've had the pleasure of owning or shooting or checking out, the TRACT is right up there. They are using good quality glass. That is going to give you a good image. They're using shot, high transmission, or HT grade glass. Now I don't exactly know all of the nuances between the different grades of shot glass, but they're using HT, and they're also using an extra low dispersion lens for that good clarity at high magnification. They wanted a really good image, and I think they've achieved it. Another thing that is a little bit personal is obviously going to be the reticle. Now they're using a Christmas tree type reticle. Again, it is available in MRAD or MOA version. And I will be honest, at first I struggled with the reticle a little bit. It does have a 0.04 center mil dot. So that's really tiny, 0.04 milliradian. That center dot was almost a little too fine, I thought, right away. In fact, and sometimes I couldn't see it. And I wished it would have been maybe a little bit more bold compared to some of the other scopes I've had that have that center dot. Then the more I shot it, the more that I found that I kind of liked having that open center when I'm shooting steel targets or other good sized targets at distance. I didn't even really need to look for it. But then when it came to zeroing or shooting for groups or shooting small targets, like I shot some match heads, it was nice to have that really fine dot not cover up a lot of my target. It worked out really well. And quite frankly, even when I was shooting some paper stages at like the Rimfire match or whatever, having that fine dot I actually thought was a really nice advantage. Now reticle is of course going to be a little subjective, and this is a Christmas tree with a good amount of information in it. So it does have the traditional tiered reticle. However, it does have all sorts of different offsets and windage and things like that. It's similar to some of the other ones on the market. However, I found in shooting that it wasn't too busy and it didn't clutter. Like some of the reticles that I've seen, it kind of looks like you're looking through a screen door because there's just so many dots and stuff, and I didn't find that to be too busy with this case. Could it be a little simpler? Again, it's subjective, it's personal preference. I've used some that were a little more simple that had less dots, and I didn't really notice that as a complaint going into this. So I guess it wasn't that big of an issue to me. And shooting Rimfire, what was nice was, of course, with the Christmas tree style reticle, I was able to spot my hits really easily in that particular match. So I was able to see it was such and such or wind hold or whatever, and then I was just able to use that to make hasty corrections and move on to make some hits. So it worked out really well in that regard. Now, if I were to buy the scope, or if you were thinking about it, what would I recommend? I would recommend buying this scope, especially when I've compared it to the others. I like it. It performs really well. In fact, I want to buy one for this rig, and it matches really well. One thing I haven't talked about is the color, because quite frankly, everybody has an opinion on color, but it is a nice dark graphite gray, which those of you guys that know me know that gray and green are my jam. So it actually matches my color scheme very well, but I think it looks very good on a traditional black or stainless rifle as well, being that it's a neutral gray. But they've done a nice job. It's not super shiny. It doesn't have like a greenish or purplish hint to the gray. It's just a nice dark gray. They do have matching rings available. And a quick note on these rings. One thing I did really like about the rings was that they come with these little inserts, and these little inserts at the bottom are the recoil lugs, and they come in different sizes, and you basically pick the appropriate size lug that fits your scope base the best. So you want a good snug fit. I thought that was really cool. The installation of the scope rings to the base was actually pretty straightforward. Pick the appropriate size lug insert, fit it well, assemble the ring, put together the scope. It came together really well and was a nice solid package. I know this was kind of a long-winded review. However, if you're thinking about dropping, by the time you buy rings and accessories and everything else, you're gonna be dropping around $2,000 on a high-end scope, especially for a product that you can't go in the store and check out and feel and touch. I think that you want the information. So I apologize if I was long-winded, but I hope it was informative to you. Bottom line, I would buy this. I really like the scope. It performed well, it tracked well, the image quality was good. Reticle is nice and usable. I had really zero complaints, especially once I got used to that fine dot. That would have been my only complaint. I guess my only complaint right up front would just be include the accessories. I'd rather have a package and pay a little bit more and have the accessories included. However, I think doing things a la carte is not a bad thing either. For more information, you can check them out online. They are online at tractoptics.com. We'll put a link as well, and that link does show that you learned about them from Guns and Tactics. Again, I'm not getting any money or kickback, but if you do click the link in the description or on the screen, it does help us just to show that we are showing people different products and we are getting some good views in the market, because believe it or not, that is how channels like us grow. If you liked the content, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. As always, if you have any questions about anything firearms related, training, tactics, or this scope, go ahead and sound off in the comment section below or send us an email at the email address shown on the screen, theqa@gunsandtactics.com, and we'll answer your questions at the end of every month, plus we give away a cool prize. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day. We work really hard to make content that we hope you as a shooter would enjoy. Subscribe to our channel, check out our featured videos and playlists, and if you have a question firearms related, go ahead and send an email to the address shown on the screen to be entered into our monthly QA series.